right, welcome to the Game 5 news conference of the NCAA Knoxville Regional. You're joined by Indiana head coach Jeff Mercer and student athletes Devin Taylor, Brock Tibbetts. Coach will make an opening statement and then we will go into questions. Coach?
Yeah, I mean, obviously today's game didn't go the way that we would have liked it to go, but I am really proud of the way that we battled back this year and had some tough times and really responded well on the stretch. Played really well the last couple of months, and so you look at your seniors and guys that are going to go play professional baseball, and you just want to give them thanks for everything they did for the program and how hard they worked, how much they invested, and how much they battled through at times this year and had a good run. And so I know today it didn't go the way we wanted it to, but those guys deserve a ton of credit and many thanks, and I'm very, very appreciative to them.
Questions?
Coach, this is now the second time really in the last week you've had to kind of deliver a season-ending type speech. Kind of walk us through what the scene was in the locker room and how you kind of delivered that message to the team post-game.
Well, I honestly haven't really talked to them yet. Sometimes those things are best when you get a chance, everybody kind of catch their breath. I don't want anybody to see their families after the game. So I told everybody just go see their families and say hello to them. I know their families are going to want to get on the road and have a drive back. So I'll talk to them and get back to the hotel and have a chance to not rush and deliver my true thoughts at the end of that. But most of it will be centered around just the message of appreciation and thanks, and guys playing through injuries and guys battling through, and how much they've invested into the program, into each other, and their love for each other. So that will be the message when we get a chance to talk afterwards.
Coach, after the rough start on the mound, Keister really did lock down there. What were you seeing from him that was particularly effective today?
Yeah, he was just able to get in the strike zone with multiple pitches. That was really the story of the first 4 innings or so. We didn't do those things, and credit to them. They forced you in the zone, and they did damage when they got a pitch in the zone. So they did a good job. But Keister was able to mix pitches and kind of get to both sides of the plate with his fastball. And when you're able to do that, you can keep guys in between. Played some good defense, made some good plays behind him. Morgan made a couple nice catches, and Tyler made a couple nice plays. Andrew made a diving catch. So when you're doing that and you're able to go and be productive behind him, that really helps. But he did a good job mixing and getting to both sides. And then Vogie did what he does, just kind of that low slot ride from a high release. He was really good. So those guys, the last 5 innings or so, scoreless, and did a really good job.
Brock, you reached 200 hits today. Obviously, future's up in the air at this point. What's your favorite memory about this year and your Indiana career so far?
I mean, it's really hard to just pinpoint one, honestly. I mean, made so many amazing friends, so many amazing memories over the last 3 years. So, I mean, just, trying to capture that into one experience, I'd say, is just kind of the thing that I'll remember most. It's hard to kind of pinpoint one moment.
In the end, some of the pitching controls and depth on the mound did you in today, as well as at times in the season. How do you balance, as you mentioned in your statement, being proud of what you accomplished this year with the disappointment, you didn't get it done today, and what can you take from it going forward to try to improve in that area so you can go a little deeper when it comes to tournaments on the mound?
Sure. We've pitched really well the last 2 months or so, and obviously the last 2 days we haven't. So I think we had some of those injuries on the mound early, and I'm proud of the way we developed. Those guys did a really good job. You look at Aiden Decker-Petty and Tangini and those guys, and Vogel, Burr. Those guys were not primary arms for us at the beginning of the season, and so you have to get those guys in the fire. You have to get them in the environment and get them in the experience. We want to get the best stuff out of our hand. We want to be able to have good stuff, have velocity, have good breaking balls. We also have to control those, and we didn't do that, yesterday or today. So continuing to be able to define and refine how we attack with our best stuff, but also in the strike zone, is something that it's the battle that all coaching staffs go through. We did a really good job of that for 6 or 8 weeks. Our pitching staff carried us there for probably a month or 6 weeks. They were really, really good, and down the stretch, they kept us in a lot of games. You remember those close games that we won against Purdue and Nebraska and in the tournament. Our pitching staff was ahead of our offense, and that's not to take anything away from our offense. They were battling as well. But, I look at it holistically and look at the beginning of the season to where we are now. It's a long journey. 60 games is a long time. So to take a snapshot of a 2-day window I think is a bit unfair to how well the pitchers performed there for 6 or 8 weeks. So you just have to get back up and go to work. We have to do a better job of being able to compete in the environment. And I think that has a lot to do with it. You've got to be able to be confident and competitive when the environment elevates around you. And we just didn't do that, especially today. And the reality is Reisdorf's battling. He's got a hernia and he's been battling through it for 6 or 8 weeks. He's taken the ball every week. He's never complained. He's battled his way through it. And so he's a warrior. And so you don't bat your eye at him today. When you're battling that stuff, it's hard to manage the zone as much. But the other guys didn't manage the environment nearly as well as they should have. But they have. They've been big time guys for us down the stretch. So you just have to, on a case by case basis, continue to improve the ability to throw your best stuff, but also attack with multiple pitches in the strike zone. But that's baseball. And so I am pleased with how those guys got better over the course of the year. Obviously, the last 2 days were disappointing, but it doesn't take away from what they did in totality.
Devin, how special has it been to play with and learn from some of the upperclassmen in the lineup like Brock, Carter, Morgan?
I mean, they really paved the way. Like, for me coming in day one, they just showed me the way of Indiana baseball. And I think, like, I've been taking everything, not for granted, like, just taking every little thing that they give me, and it's helped me throughout this whole way.
Coach, when you look years down the road, when you look back at this team and all the ups and downs that you guys went through and the injuries, what will you remember most, and how will you describe this team when you look back on it years from now?
That's a deep question. You always each group you remember the they're not kids, they're young men, but you remember the players, their relationships the most. And the older you get and the older that they get, that bond and that relationship is what, and I know college sports is a big deal, but it really at its core is about people, and it's about the young men and your responsibility to them and their responsibility to each other. So you always take that with each team, and each team has its own experience and highs and lows. Every team goes through that. I think the thing that I'll remember the most is we were dead in the water there about a month or 6 weeks into the season, and we were in a tough spot. We were like 115 in the RPI. We were struggling. We didn't have an identity necessarily. Just kind of going through some of those, like I said, the injuries and whatnot, and struggling and being emotional. And so I remember the guys. I remember talking to Brock a ton. I remember talking to Devin a ton. I remember talking to Devin in the hitting facility. Some of those late conversations. About what it was going to take for us to get back up off our backside and go and compete and make a run at doing that. It would have been really easy for those guys to not, been really easy for Devin or Brock or those guys for Brock not to come back from the knee injury, for Devin to be frustrated and not continue to battle, for Ty Bothwell to be frustrated and not battle, but they didn't. They didn't do that. They didn't cave, they didn't quit, they didn't back down, and they fought through and they persevered. We had to thread the needle almost perfectly the last 2 months, and we did. And we put ourselves in a position to be able to compete on the biggest stage. And I know it didn't go our way, but sometimes, I guess not sometimes, the best things in life are the hardest things. And when you look at how hard it was at times and how we persevered through those things, that's what I'll remember the most. It's easy when it all goes right. It's easy when it all goes smooth. It's easy when you're healthy and everything goes right and you win every game, win every close game, and the ball always bounces your way. It's a lot harder to get back up and continue to fight. And that's what this group did. And that's what I'm very proud of. And that's what I remember them for, a very resilient and tough group that refused to quit, that understood the standards and the expectations of the program, and that upheld those every day. The best you can do is the best you can do. And those guys did it every day. And I'm very proud of that.
You mentioned how the pitching got better down the stretch the last 6 to 8 weeks. Other than the experience these guys have now, is there something you want to do? It's a long way off. Is there something you want to do to try to get it going, from the jump next year like you did in 2023? And more this year being more like 2022, where you eventually figured it out. But is there something you can do to get it going from the get-go so you don't have to rally late, which you've done an excellent job with? But how do you do it so that the pitching is good from the get-go and you don't have to figure out, or will experience just take care of that next year now that these guys have been through it?
Yeah, experience does help a ton. I would say, and this is not to point fingers, but just to stay healthy. We didn't early, and so the only way to get better is to do something for all of us. Me as a coach, I'm hopefully a much better coach now than I was 5 or 6 years ago. And so those guys, Aiden Decker-Petty hadn't thrown, and Julian hadn't thrown for us, and Drew Burr hadn't thrown at this level. Those guys hadn't done it. Reisdorf hadn't been a starter. Foley hadn't been a starter. Bothwell hadn't been an every week starter. And so, some of those guys go down, just like the position players. When Shepard got hurt, and all of a sudden, Joey B's thrust into it. And so those guys had to go through it. So you have to go through kind of a mid-year player development process. I would say that some of the things that we've talked about doing is, continuing to play a really hard schedule, play a hard schedule in the fall, our fall scrimmages against really good teams. This past year we played Indiana State and Notre Dame, but get those guys in big time experiences, travel and go and do those things. Obviously you're always trying to refine your environment. How do you create a more difficult environment? Not mean-spirited, but difficult and challenging. And so you try to put those guys in different situations as much as you can in practice. I think having a really talented team, we'll have a really, really talented team again next year. And so your own practice is your best breeding ground for success. Where when guys have to throw to guys like Devin and Brock every day in practice, it helps them to get better faster. And so having a really talented team, we'll have a great offense next year. Having a really talented team to throw to every day will help that. But yeah, you're always trying to create a challenging environment. Sometimes you can't replicate what the actual game is, but doing those things will help a ton. And then you have to continue to push them to understand how difficult this truly is. And it's hard to grasp until you're actually in it. You can talk about it. You can put them in a practice environment. You can show them video. But until you are on the mound or in the batter's box or at shortstop in front of thousands of people, it's just you don't know. You don't know until you know. But I think it's important to know for all of us, and the coaches included, you have to stay with people. You have to stay with them. You can't just tell a young man that, hey, you struggled, you weren't very good today, you're not worth anything, and because you didn't perform in the way we wanted you to today. And that's just not true. That's not true. They're great young men across the country. They're all going through it. And so we have to stay behind them. We have to encourage them. They have to know that we believe in them and that they are capable of having success. And I think that we did that, and those guys got better. But those will be the 3 or 4 different things I would say that we have to continue to do. But nothing replicates in-game experience. Nothing replicates going out and doing it when the lights are turned on. And so you always tell the guys, you want to be playing your best baseball at the end of the season. You always want to be growing and learning and developing and being better at the end. And we did that, and those guys did. And so from that standpoint, success, we may need to start at a higher point to begin with so we can do that, stay healthy, have a good summer, play great summer and summer ball, and go and get better, and those things will take care of themselves. But that's a great question. You're exactly right.
Last one on the third row.
Coach, I know it's early, but just off the top of the head, is there anything you can think of right now that you'd like to do differently in this offseason than you have in the past?
Each year I do a pre-mortem. So like, if we fail, we'll fail because. And so you list out 100 reasons. If you fail, why would you fail? And we do it before every season starts, and we try to develop our practice plans based around all the reasons that you'll fail, and then try to keep those things from happening. I haven't done one yet for next year. I think this summer is a big summer for some of those young guys to go and play in summer ball. We've talked about potentially having guys play in some leagues that play more summer ball games. I think that's really important. We've always leaned on our young guys a ton. That's kind of been it's always been our philosophy to develop from within and recruit at a high level, develop from within. But part of that also is we got to get some games under our belt in summer ball. Some of those guys need to play more than 30 or 40 games. We need to get up to 40, 50, 60 games if we can. We've talked about trying to spend more time in scrimmage play, to have more live one-offs and some different live at-bat situations. So, off the top of my head, those things will be a priority. You're always looking at your development tactics, whether it's in the weight room and your speed development and your offensive drill work and your pitching drill work. How do you make your drills more applicable and repeatable? So those things will always be in there. But off the top of my head, just trying to create more and more environment-based training, difficult games in the off season, difficult training environments, whether it's you're using machines or whatever else it is, trying to replicate that more often will be a main focal point going forward. I mean, it has been, but you're always trying to refine that.
Thank you, gentlemen, and congratulations on a great season.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, guys.
Safe travels. Thank you.